Morning, everyone. Just wanted to say a quick thank you to James and my colleagues for entrusting me in this topic. It's pretty exciting to get up here and tell you guys pretty much what I see as one of the huge opportunities for lifting our yields across the high rainfall zone, and that's by giving you guys and then you guys giving your growers tools that they have already, which is, you know, things like choosing varieties, choosing when to sow. So, setting up for a pretty good yield potential before you even pull the seeder out of the shed. As James mentioned, I'm going to talk more specifically about the trial results that we had down at Inverleigh in 2012 and 2013. I guess the reason this work started was just that question of, well, how can we improve wheat yields in our region? And firstly, we had to accept that there's a lot of inefficiencies. We get the rain, we don't necessarily turn that rain into kilos of grain. That's due to not knowing when the break's going to come, cold winters, waterlogging, subsoil constraints, and the last few years of trial results that show that we're generally sowing a little bit too late for optimum yields, and losing up to 40 kilos of grain per day that you're sowing too late from the optimum. And just wanting to, I guess, pose the question, are we missing opportunities when the break comes early and on time? How we decided to, I guess, investigate this was selecting 4 varieties with differing maturity. So these are just spring wheats, starting with Forest, which is long season spring wheat, all the way down to Lincoln, which is a faster wheat. And James assisted in identifying sowing date based on getting a flowering date in that, I guess, lower risk period of frost and that heat stress. So I think it was about the 16th of October we identified as the optimum anthesis date, and, you know, a computer told us when to sow all these varieties, and I reckon we got it pretty spot on, so that was nice. 2012 results just up here on the board. So a really nice story in 2012, basically sowing early. So 1st of May was our best sowing and our earliest sowing in this trial, and it decreases pretty nicely, I suppose, for the sake of the story. We did learn a few things in 2012 which helped us set up for 2013, and that was firstly, right back at sowing, was the seed bed conditions. So sowing dry, this is the first time we're sowing in April at Westmere, actually, where we didn't do any seed bed preparation and brought up huge clods, and as you can see, just didn't get that plant strike that you'd look for. We brought the top down in and had cultivated for the other times of sowing, and just got a heaps better plant strike. So, you know, when you're looking at a 1.5 tonne per hectare difference just from preparing for sowing, that's a pretty good lesson learnt there. Ryegrass, so sowing early, sowing before the break, you're losing that option of having that early control on your ryegrass. And this is a photo taken at our Lake Bolac site in the 2011 season, which has got a really great population of resistant ryegrass, and our early times of sowing and low plant population treatments were just completely wiped out at that site. So, you know, it's about paddock selection, I suppose, not sowing into a paddock where you know there's a big weed burden to start with. This photo's not great up on the board, but disease really bit us, I suppose, in 2012 and again in 2013. Just looking at the green leaf area in this forest sown on the same day as this Lincoln, but just forest being I guess you've got to look at the disease package of forest, which is MRMS for Septoria and Lincoln's S. So I guess taking that into account, but also that these leaves, because Lincoln's a faster variety, the key yield contributing leaves were out and unprotected before that fungicide went out, and the forest was pretty well covered. So yeah, seed bed, choosing your paddock for weeds, and just thinking about these extra or altered management decisions. So, you know, not looking at calendar dates, actually looking at growth stages and for your disease and nitrogen management. Still eyebrow raising going on from a lot of our members, and it's always about rain. So, you know, it's all well and good to tell me to sow a bit early, but am I actually going to get the rain? Is my crop going to survive? So I can't tell you when the break's going to come. I wish I could. I'd be in high demand then. But we have this, you know, a bit of work that Cam Nicholson's doing with this at-risk program, if anyone's heard of it. And he talks about it as like having a rainfall form guide. So just like you're going to the races, you're looking at, you know, past performances of rainfall. So this is rainfall, and this is recorded data for Inverleigh for the month of April. And a quick word on averages. You can see that that's not a normal distribution. It's heavily weighted toward the lower end of the scale. So treating your average rainfall for April has to be done with caution, I suppose. And the word on the street is mode's a little bit of a better way. So mode's your most frequent event, and it's pretty much always going to be lower than your average. So yeah, we use this actual data and this form guide to then create, on race day, I suppose, the odds for the future. So this is a distribution based on those real rainfall events. And allows us to, like, we just put in the chance of getting 25 mil, the chance of getting 50 mil. So anything on this curve to the right of 25 mil is basically saying that's your probability of getting more than 25 mil in April. And it's telling us it's about nearly 64%. Chance of getting more than 50 mil is about 30%. And, you know, I guess this has to be taken with a grain of salt, but it's using these probabilities and past events to make, you know, more informed decisions about sowing. And the key message here is that opportunities for early sowing do exist. If your break, you know, is defined by more than 25 mil, and you can get that in 3 out of 5 years, is that good enough odds for you to start thinking, you know, I'll get my growers to, I guess, maybe plan for sowing in late April instead of May. Brings us to 2013. We had 4 sowing dates, and they were a bit better than 2012. So started on the 26th of March and finished on the 10th of May. And I guess the thing that we always forget is, like, the 10th of May is still early in the grand scheme of sowing wheat in our area. So just keep that in the back of your mind as I show you the results. We had quite a big variety list set by SFS, Cyro and FAR as well, just so that we didn't miss anything. And that's a mix of winter wheats and spring wheats there. And we also had some defoliation. I have to put a disclaimer in. Everyone knows what the season was looking like in March and April last year. And for the sake of research, we actually irrigated in our first 3 times of sowing. So we wanted to get a year of data, of good data, and we're, you know, not ashamed to say that we did it, and we're glad we did it. So we've got some really great data to move forward with. I guess the thing that really stood out to us is we put 15 mil of irrigated water on, and, you know, that was after sowing on the 26th of March, and we got this crop up. and it survived until we got the break in mid-May. So again, that got me thinking about how do we define the break, and I guess it's up to personal experiences and preferences and soil type, because that was quite a light sandy soil type there at Inverleigh. This is just a photo of revenue sown early, taken in August, and just compared to Kalalik, which is a spring wheat. You can see the, I guess, growth stage difference. This was one of the isogenic lines from Syro, which flowered about 3 weeks after that was taken, so it flowered at the start of September. Obviously not what we were looking for, but it was certainly good classroom learning for us to see. Results showed a really nice story. This is our milling varieties here. Yeah, sort of around, yeah, I guess between 5 and 8 tonne. There's more detail in James's paper in the book if anyone's interested in specific numbers. This is our good slide though. This is our feed varieties, and you can see revenue and both peaked at about 9.3, 9.4 tonne, and just telling us that in 2013 our best sowing date was the 24th of April, and 10th of May is still considered early. And look how the yields have kind of dropped away a little bit. The defoliation just tells a really nice story for us. So we did it with a mower just before, at growth stage 30 roughly, on the revenue and Derrimut plots. And what we saw was quite interesting, that the defoliated revenue out-yielded Beaufort that wasn't defoliated. So I guess just making us think about grazing as a management tool for our winter wheats, I suppose. Nitrogen management, got an email from James with a yield profit report that just showed us we were tracking pretty nicely with rainfall, and the potential yield of the first time of sowing of revenue was like looking pretty impressive, like pushing that 10 tonne barrier. So yeah, James said keep pumping that in, and that we did. So the trial had in total 300 kilos of nitrogen, so that was in the form of UAN and urea. So yeah, it definitely wasn't hungry, and we didn't want these varieties to be limited by nitrogen, because it certainly wasn't limited by moisture. And that was split over 3 applications. This was just a pretty neat photo, just showing the forage N management, which was more N up front for dry matter and recovery from grazing, compared to our grain N, and just showing the difference in the canopy structure there. This is a cool slide, and that looks good up there too. Just going back to septoria and disease management, it was so obvious at one of our crop walks that all the revenue buffers or the revenue plots that hadn't been grazed had more septoria than the ones that had been grazed. And this was particularly evident in one rep that had actually missed a foliar fungicide, and you can see that green leaf's just been lost there. So this is pretty much comparing our worst to probably one of the best, but it's a good visual tool. And when we put the header in, we found that there was a 3.3 tonne difference just based on that, defoliated versus not defoliated but didn't have that disease management. Take-home messages from us: getting wheat in early can help cope with waterlogging, especially feeding that crop before it gets too wet. We've found there's a general mismatch of varieties and sowing dates, something that people are generally in control of themselves. And especially in these years where we're flowering too late in a tight finish. 2013 was like a beautiful spring, and I suppose quite forgiving on those other varieties that didn't get put under that stress that may have happened in 2009, should I say. And yeah, basically what we saw was optimum sowing windows last week of April to the first week of May, and opportunities do arise with the break. Just thanks to the 2 projects that covered this work, James Hunt especially, and his colleagues from CSIRO, Ed and Gina, and Tracy and Nick, and there's Tracy out in the pouring rain and wind taking one of many assessments. So a labour of love. Thank you.